Howdy guys, welcome back to the channel. And as you can see, we are back in the studio continuing my series on shooting in a photo studio. And today we're going to be talking about exposure, specifically how to nail your exposure before the model even turns up. That way, when the model or the client turns up, you're set, your exposure is good, you're not fiddling around trying to figure it out while you're shooting. And so to help me with that today, we have our first guest, my lovely friend Stephanie.
Hi.
Stephanie, well, why don't you go ahead and tell them who you are?
ステファニーです。動画クリエイターとモデルもしてます。
You might recognize her, you've definitely seen her in some of my other videos on my retouching tutorials, and if you look at my Instagram, you've probably definitely seen a lot of photos that I've taken of her. So we work pretty good together, I think. All right, so with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right in. Okay, so there are a lot of times when I'm doing a shoot and the client or the model is in makeup or she's getting wardrobe or getting her hair done, so they're not here. But if I wait around for her to turn up before I start lighting and doing exposure, it can kind of waste a lot of time. So I'm going to show you two ways how we can do that before the model's here. So let's go over our first method. Now the first method is going to be the old school classic style of using a light meter. Sorry. Now light meters are great, especially in the photo studio, because most of the time your camera or my camera settings are pretty much set. Meaning if you watch my last video about camera settings, you'll know what I'm talking about, but my camera is already set to ISO 100, shutter speed of 200th of a second, and I like to shoot around f5.6, f8. That kind of gives me the best focus for my lens, and I'm not really worried about blurring out the background because, well, it's just a solid gray back. So using a light meter, we can easily put all our camera settings in and then just adjust the power of the light using the readouts from our light meter. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how we do that. So like I said, normally our model might be in makeup or she might be getting her hair done, and so she's not actually here. But since we do have Stephanie here, we're gonna go ahead and use her. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and give you this. And you know how to use this, right?
Hi.
We've used it, she's a pro. And the light meter already has the settings for my camera, which means I have it set to ISO 100 and a shutter speed of 200th of a second. That means that when the light from the light source here hits the light meter, it's gonna tell me what aperture I need to be at to get a perfect exposure. Now, I've already decided that my aperture is going to be 5.6. So what I'm gonna do is when we use the light meter, I'm going to adjust our light, the power of the light, until the light meter tells me it's 5.6. Then I know the exposure is set. Now, the first main important thing is to make sure that you're light metering where the model is going to be. So one second, sorry. So, you know, for example, if you're doing your light meter back here, but then when the model comes in and they're standing here, then it's going to be too bright because you're exposing for, you know, back here. So make sure that you either have a bench or some tape or a mark, or at least generally know the area that the model is going to be at. And that way you're exposing basically where she's going to be at. So Stephanie. Okay. So the light meter is already, oops, I think I turned it off. No, okay. So the light meter is set to flash, the little lightning bolt symbol. That means that when it detects a bright flash of light, it's gonna give me a reading. So we're using one single light source for ease of simplicity. The light source is already hooked up to my camera, and let's try one. So Stephanie, go ahead and press the button. And I'm gonna go ahead and fire my light. It says 2.5. So if I wanted to get a perfect exposure, I would have to change my camera to 2.5. But I don't want to do that, right? I want to shoot it at 5.6. So we're going to keep raising the power of this light until it tells me 5.6. So let's go up a bit. And I'm going to do a test. There's a test button on this light. I'm going to go ahead and hit the test button. And what does it say? It says 3.6. So we're going to go a bit higher. Press it again. We are now at 6.3, a little bit too much. Let's go ahead and drop it down. 5.0, 5.6. All right, so now the light meter tells me 5.6. So now, Stefan, if you want to just jump in here real quick. So now, basically, if I have my camera set to 5.6, ISO 100, shutter speed 200 per second, I should have a perfect exposure. Let's go ahead and check that. All right, so Let's see, Steph, give me your best modeling look. And there we go. We've got a really good exposure. Let's do one more. All right, perfect. So you like that one. So as you can see, just by using this light meter, we've already dialed in our exposure even before she turned up. So that's the first method of getting a really good exposure in the studio. Now, what about the second method, which is the cheaper method if you don't actually own a light meter? So we're gonna look at that one right now. Okay, so now we're gonna look at method 2, which I guess is the bit of a cheaper method, and that's actually using a gray card. So this is a gray card that I bought off the internet. I actually cut it down in size where it's a little bit more portable. And you can notice that there is a lighter side and a darker side. Usually the lighter side is for white balance, and the darker side should be 50% gray. So we can use this to help us find an exposure. If we know this is 50% gray, then we should shoot this card and we can look at our histogram and basically know where this card falls. So really quick, I'm gonna change the light. I'm just gonna mix it up and just do some other lighting here. And I'm gonna have Stephanie this time hold the gray card. Now again, normally if the model's not here, I might put this on a C-stand or a light stand, roughly where the model's gonna be at. Again, it's very important that you have the position pretty much correct. You know, if we're measuring from something like here, but she ends up standing a foot or two back, our exposure is not going to be good. So what I want you to do, Steph, is I want you to hold this right up to your face. There you go. And I am going to take a picture. Okay, there you go. Thank you. Now, I probably didn't mention it earlier, but I am shooting tethered. I'm shooting tethered into Capture One. It's just a little easier for me to see the images on a big screen, and I can also look at the histogram really easily. So I'm gonna show you really quick what we see on the histogram. So I've taken a picture and we can look at Capture One and we can look at the gray card. Now I can hover the mouse over the gray card and it shows me where it falls in the histogram. And because this is a 50% gray card, the gray card should fall about right at 50%. So let's go ahead and try a few and then see till we get that. So why don't you hold on to that again and hide, yeah, right in front of your face, perfect. And let's go ahead and take a few pictures. So we're gonna do our first one here. And get a focus. Okay, and we can see that it's a bit too dark, so we're gonna go ahead and raise up the light, and I'm gonna do it here on the remote this time. Let's try another one. Okay, and if I hover my mouse over the gray card, you can see here on the histogram where it's falling. Now we want this gray card to be right in the middle of that histogram, so we're gonna go a lot higher here. And I know some people are really good at looking at things and oh, it's gonna be 1 stop or 1.5 stops over. That's never really been anything I was good at, so I'm just kind of like, just dial it in and see what happens. Go back to your face, please, thank you. All right, we're getting a little bit closer. Let's go a little higher. Let's see, I think maybe this one will be it. And okay, so now if we look and I hover this mouse over the gray card, it tells me it's about 50%. I can even see it's not actually totally white because if it was, those red, green, and blue lines would all be lined up. That's okay. All right, so go ahead and you can lower the card. Give me your best modeling pose. And let me make sure I'm in focus here. And there you go. That looks like a pretty decent exposure. I have my exposure warning on, nothing's clipping, and we are good. It's a little hot, so now I can lower the exposure a little bit. One more, 3, 2, 1. All right, that looks okay. And so let me just jump back in the frame here. And so the idea is that you want to get your exposure really, really close. So once the model and the talent comes in, you are just basically making tiny tweaks of the exposure because your base exposure is already pretty much dialed in. Now, I like to do this once with my main light. Once my key light is set up, then I can start adding other lights like a hair light, backlight, fill light. But once I have my key light already set and ready to go, then you're pretty much halfway there. So anyways, I hope this video was helpful. Stephanie, thank you very much for helping me.
It's my pleasure.
Oh, okay. So if you like Stephanie's, you want to follow her, you can follow her. So where can they find you?
TikTok と Instagram。
All right, so I'll put her links down below so you can follow her on TikTok. She makes lots of funny videos making strange faces and stuff. It's all in Japanese, but you know, I think a lot of it's universal. Everybody can understand. She's funny, so please check her out. And until then, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and then we'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Peace.
バイバイ。
All right.
ねえ。
はい。